If you like your summer tops to be airy but still not too revealing, you may enjoy this technique for faux lace. This motif will run up the center front of a t-shirt that I'm planning, and you're looking at the swatch prior to washing. I'll show it to you after it is washed and dried shortly. Zooming out for a moment, you can see in this photograph that I laid the swatch on a brightly patterned rug to photograph it. And even though the fabric has not yet done its shrinking and drawing in because it's unwashed, you can't see through the lacy part very well at all. We're going to gloss over the cast on here because I show it to you in its entirety in much more detail in another movie. But basically, we're going to cast on using every needle, even though the center 5 will later become the lace and we won't be using every needle. And the cast on is accomplished with doubled yarn. Because of that, I find it best to knit the first row manually so as to take the strain off of the carriage and make sure of success. So we're cast on. Let's move on to the lace setup. We need to empty the center 5 stitches. So after knitting that manual row, transfer the center stitch to the left or the right and knit across one time. Now move the stitch to the left of the empty needle farther to the left, the one on the right to the needle to the right. There should be 3 empty needles and they should be out of work. Knit across and repeat that one more time. After this transfer, we'll have the 5 empty needles that we need set up. I'm hanging a weighted comb now. You could also use claw weights, but since I tend to knit my cotton yarns loosely, some kind of weight does help. Now we just knit, and we're making long floats while we knit. We're going to use those floats to very quickly make lace once we get up to the top of the project. Well, actually the top of the swatch. For an adult-sized sweater, I would recommend doing this in 2 or 3 batches just because it's more manageable and easier to keep control. Since we did cast on every stitch, we can find the center one and insert the tool through the center chain stitch. Slide it behind one of the empty bars, the floats we made, catch the next one and pull through. Slide behind one, grab the next one, pull through. We're making a tucked purl column of stitches. This technique looks nice on both sides. I think I'm going to use the knit side for my sweater, but you could use the same pattern and do the opposite. Once we're all the way at the top, hang the last loop that you get onto your latch tool onto the center needle. And here's how it will look if you decide to use the purl side for your right side. Here's a view from the knit side. The treatment of the top is going to depend on what you're doing next. If we're going into a V neckline, which I probably will do in the real sweater, there'll be some more transferring. But if you're just binding off, perhaps you're using this for a blanket or a pot holder or something other than a sweater with a neckline, it's probably best to bind off using every needle. So let's bind off around the gate pegs. And in this case, because it's only a swatch, I am using a plain old acrylic yarn just to make life a little bit easier because it slides better than the cotton yarn does when making chain stitches around the gate pegs. Binding off the existing stitches normally, then switching and simply making chain stitches around the empty needles, binding off the center one, 2 chains around the empties, and onward. Making those extra chains around the empty needles will keep the lace treatment from pulling in the swatch, which might be something that you don't want. And I certainly don't want it for swatching purposes because I don't want it to distort the size. The yarn in use here is Peaches and Cream by Spin Right. It's a number 4 cotton yarn, and there are several other number 4 cottons that will behave in basically the same way. This one is inexpensive and available. Mine came from Walmart. If all goes well, the blouse will turn out like the sketch on the left. I'll make a video so you can follow along, and the written version will be added to the bulky cotton tops collection. Here's the swatch after washing.